You're listening to the REI Clarity Podcast, the show that guides you from confusion to clarity and sets you on the path to financial freedom faster. Learn how to grow your portfolio the right way with your host, REI advisor and co-founder of Shine Insurance, Jeremy Goodrich.
Hey, this is Jeremy Goodrich, your host for the REI Clarity Podcast. Our guest today, like so many before her, is going to dig deep into her journey, how she grew her large investment property portfolio, and how she knows that you can do the exact same thing. Whitney Nicely is our guest, and she has been an entrepreneur kind of all her life. In fact, she grew up in an entrepreneurial family. And she'll tell that story at the beginning of this episode. And then she's going to dig into exactly how you can take your investment property journey to the next level. Specifically, she'll talk on a subject that I think a lot of folks struggle with. And that is, how do you find those sellers? And once you have found a seller, how do you know how to negotiate the deal in a way that works for everyone? It doesn't always have to be because you have a bunch of money behind you. You know, there's the negotiation of the deal, but there can also be ways that you're negotiating with a seller and working out a scenario where the money can come from a lot of spaces. The money could come from a lender. The money could come from other type of investors, but the money could also come from the side of the seller in the way of lease options and seller financing. Whitney is going to go dig deep into both of those things and talk about how she navigates a relationship with a seller and how she works the situation to make sure that she gets the best deal while also, of course, being fair to all parties. And so if you want to learn two things: one, how to find those sellers, and two, how to navigate those sellers once you've found them, this episode is for you. Whitney digs deep into both of those topics and teaches you how to do that. So you will come out on the other end of this episode with a deeper knowledge of how you can go into your buying scenarios, which of course is so key to the entire process of growing a business in the investment property world. You've got to understand how to find the sellers and then how to navigate them in a way that you end up with the deal. If you can't find a seller, you don't have a deal. If you can't work the deal, you don't have a deal. Someone else is going to jump in and take that from you. And so Whitney is going to teach us how to do exactly that. I hope you enjoy this interview. I loved talking with Whitney. She is one of my favorite investors. I've been following her for a long time. She's been on other podcasts we've done before, and she just has an energy for this. She just believes that as an investment property owner, we can find financial freedom. I think that's so exciting, and I know that she's going to help you to do that. So without further ado, here is my interview with Whitney Nicely. I wonder if you can describe for listeners kind of what your day-to-day feels like and what point you're at in your investment property journey.
Okay, so I'll take you back and tell you why I'm so crazy. When I graduated college, I went to work for my mom's family company. Okay, I was a fourth generation entrepreneur in our family. And when I went to my first day at work, they said, great, you're going to do all of this times 2 companies, and then you're going to do this for that company, and then this little section for the fourth company. So literally the first day I went to work in the real world, I had 4 full-time jobs. So now
sounds right when you start to work with the family, you know.
That's how it works in the family. Yeah, everybody is on call and everything needs to be fixed yesterday, and go, all hands on deck. Absolutely. So
those were trucking companies for the most part, right?
Yes, 2 dump truck companies, an over-the-road company, and a truck dealership. And I was our truck salesman. I didn't know how to sell anything, but I'm telling you, all the things I learned selling dirty old dump trucks to dirty old men really helped me when I started selling houses. No, when I started buying houses from dirty old men and then selling them to dirty old men. But all those same marketing strategies and all those things that, like, some things I just kind of inherently knew because as an entrepreneur's kid, you just kind of learn things. You learn negotiating. My dad was always fixing and flipping 4-wheelers and cars and boats and everything. And so I just learned negotiating from watching him. I learned from watching my papa. So I'm a natural salesman. But, there are marketing channels that you have to learn, like Craigslist, and which websites you put stuff on, and how do you give somebody a light bulb and keep the deal intact. And, some of those things you have to learn on the job. But I didn't know when I graduated college I was going to get 4 full-time jobs. And now, you asked what I'm doing today, I have 4 full-time jobs again. 3 of them are in real estate, and then I actually started my own dump truck company, and we got certified as a DBE, which only a small percentage of companies that are disadvantaged can actually qualify for that. So I'm super proud of that. And so 3 real estate companies and a dump truck company, just in case I get bored. I still have 4 full-time jobs.
You still have 4 full-time jobs, but now you've created them. You've decided what they are. You've built one on top of the other, and you're in control of that space. And that's what being an entrepreneur is. So, why being an entrepreneur is so cool, right?
Absolutely. And I needed to have control. I'm a control freak. I will tell y'all that right here, right now. That's fine. I'm learning to adapt to it. My family already understands it, so they roll with it too. And a lot of people are miserable because they're working for the family company and they don't feel like they're being heard. They don't feel like they're being valued. And that's exactly how I felt. And I said, all right, y'all, I can't do this anymore. I got 2 uncles telling me what to do. I got my mom telling me what to do. And I'm wanting to go off into left field and do something else. And it was better for all of us to let me go off into left field and figure something out. And thankfully, my first company is a real estate investing company. And I think that is so, so important because it's a lot easier to leave your full-time job when you have monthly money coming in. You're not going to be homeless and on the streets. Not that my mom, would let it go that far. She'd let me sleep on her couch like she did for 2 years while I was figuring things out. But that cushion will help you leave the family company. It'll help you leave your corporate 9-to-5. It might help you leave your husband if you're in that kind of situation. But if you're thinking about making any kind of move, please, please, please start buying houses. Start getting some passive income. And even if it's just $200 or $300, do 10 deals. Now you're making $2 or $3 grand passively. You can step out and do something different now because you have the money to back up your dreams. And that's what I did first.
So what did that first deal look like? Let's talk about that a little bit. Like when you knew you wanted to take that leap, you wanted to get out there, how did you know what to do and what ultimately did you do?
My family has always run this dump truck company, or all of these truck companies, but when things were good, they would take some money and buy a house. They would take some money and buy land. They would take some money and build a building and then rent it back out to get their money back. So they were always teaching me how to balance both jobs at the same time. The day job that pays the day stuff and the future money that pays the future stuff. So you got to remember, you are working 2 different jobs here. And even if you're wholesaling or you're fix and flipping and you're buying rentals and you're buying apartments, you're still working 2 different sides of it. So they really showed me that. So I knew whenever I got any money, I was supposed to invest it. But my mom told me, just figure it out, go buy something. So I went to a real estate auction and I bought 1.07 acres of a developed subdivision that had failed. There weren't any houses built in there. But I paid $1,200, tax, tag, and title, and I was a real estate investor. 100 years ago, I couldn't have bought that property because I was an unmarried woman. My daddy would have had to sign, or my brother, or somebody would have had to help me get that. And so it was important for me to say, I'm a real estate investor. It only cost me $1,200, but I'm in. I bought something. I didn't even know where Decatur, Tennessee was when I bought that property. I was just hanging out at an auction. They're asking $1,200. I got $1,200. Let's buy something.
That's cool.
I was definitely throwing spaghetti against the wall, but that was my very first deal. The woman that I ended up buying it from, she'd paid $69,000 and had a loan through the bank on it to build a house. So at some point, somebody thought this land was $69,000 worth of value. Yeah. I only thought it was worth $1,200, and now I got it.
How long ago was that? How long have you been doing that?
December of 12. And I didn't have a clue about anything. I could barely spell real estate investing. I had a real estate license, but I didn't even know what I was doing over there. I never listed a house. I just went to school.
So the message from that buy, and you've already said it a couple times, but is to take that leap, to take the action, to find a way to invest. For folks who you teach, and you were going to go into this, and I will go into it in a second, but for folks who you teach, what are the best first first buys? Like where you went to an auction, is that what you would suggest, or are there other places to look?
I went broke trying to get rich in real estate because my family always went to auctions and bought properties. And so that's the only way I knew. I didn't know anything about talking to FSBOs. I didn't know anything about yellow letters. I didn't know anything about bandit signs. I didn't know. I thought the only way to get deals was to go to auctions and buy them with cash that you had. I didn't even know you could really go to the bank because then you needed money down. I thought, well, if I got that much money down, why don't I just buy something and own it free and clear? I was so clueless when I got started. It was unbelievable. So I would tell people, if you're getting started, do more research than I did. I'm a short fuse. If you tell me to go do something, I'm going to go do it, and then I'll figure out how to do it better later, but I'm going to have it done one way or the other. Y'all are listening to this, you're already on the right track. You're already researching and learning and growing. Okay, do I want land? Do I want houses? Do I want to get into apartments? And when I help my ladies that I help, I really try to take time to say, what do you want? Do you want to hustle? Do you want to wholesale? Or do you just want some passive income to come in so you got some fun spending money? Like, what do you want? Because if you want to go to the beach, that's great, but you can't just get in the car and hope you end up there sometime.
Yeah. So you can do it a lot of different ways. It really depends on who you are, what you want to do, how you want to do it, and how, do you want money right now? Well, maybe you should flip or wholesale. Do you not really need money right now? You don't want to leave your job maybe for another 5 or 6 years. Let's buy and hold a few things. Let's build up some stuff, build up some assets, and that money can come back around to you on the other end. So it kind of depends on where people are coming from.
And if you're super busy or you just don't want to take a bunch of risk, you could be a private money lender. You got a bunch of money, you got a bunch of equity, you got a 401k. Like, there's people out there with lots of money, they just don't know what to do with it, so they hand it over to a financial planner and he says, great, I'll take good care of it. But some people want to be a little bit more involved in that. So there's lots of different ways. It's hard for me to say definitely do this because I really think it depends on where you are and what you want. And sometimes I don't know about for the men, but for the women, it's really hard to admit what we really want because sometimes we feel like maybe we don't deserve it, or we have to wait a long time, or we have to work really hard to get it. What do you want? Tell me that, and I'll help you get there.
I love that so much. And I want to dig into at shebuysit.com, which is one of your businesses. That is your coaching business, right? Where you help other investors. It says right at the top, women are the best real estate investors. And I know that you love teaching women, and it just kind of emanates from your soul, bringing women into real estate investing. Why are women the best real estate? I don't know how to ask that exactly right, but I believe that too. And where does that come from? And what do you see when you see women investing in real estate?
Well, this goes back to my mom. She has had rental houses since I was a kid. I grew up the way most people want their kids to grow up, with mailbox money. I remember racing my brother to the mailbox to get the checks out. I didn't know bills came in the mailbox until I was in my 20s. And that's when I said, wait a second, Mom. Why do you have all this money and I've got all these bills? And she was like, you have to buy something.
You got to have something for money to come in from.
Yeah. But I really realized that most people don't grow up with a mom that says, go buy houses, you'll be okay. Most people have a mom that says, get a good steady job, save up your life savings, don't do anything risky, blah, 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 blah. I don't even know what they say because I've never heard that. And so I really realized that women especially weren't having the leadership. They weren't having any mentors. They weren't getting any help. I mean, there's books and magazines and websites dedicated to how to put your lipstick on, but there's not a lot dedicated to how to build a real estate portfolio. And I just saw this as a huge market of people that needed my help, and they needed a sister to come along and say, you can do this. You can take that risk. You can make that money. And I really feel that women are the best investors because we're natural negotiators. I mean, we can get kids to eat stuff that's green. We can get our husbands to do things while the game is on TV sometimes. Like, we are great negotiators, but we don't see that as a skill set or a strength a lot of times. We also are natural nesters. We can feel a good neighborhood. We can know when you're in trouble. We can spot when people are lying to us or when they're not telling us the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and they're hiding things back. And I can tell you, and I'll say this, I can probably get away with saying some things that you couldn't say to sellers and to other people just regularly on the street. I can say things because I'm going to come at it in a different tone, with a different attitude. And sellers a lot of times are going to want to work with me because I'm going to let them into my story a little bit. I've seen men negotiate, and it's kind of a contest to who's going to be the alpha. And when a woman comes in, there's not that natural contest. Also, women are great investors because a lot of women are inheriting properties through death and divorce, and they don't know what to do with it. And they trust another woman coming in to help them go through these waters. And I also want to say, I love men. I really do. I get a bad rap sometimes because I promote the girls and girl power and women can do it. They're the best investors, but I love men. The thing is, I have a dad, I have a brother, I have a husband. My men positions are pretty well full.
Well, I think you do such a good job of just empowering the space. It's not necessarily even about who you are or what you're up to. It's like, okay, well, we're going to help you to get into this space, to get into real estate investing, to take your life where you want it to go. I think that sometimes guys are all about this, like the money, and the money is a big part of it. But I think that women inherently oftentimes have a more well-rounded look at, what are we trying to build here? What's the story we're trying to create for ourselves? How are we creating a work-life balance that gives us the space to be able to do the things we really love to do? And not that that's entirely a gender thing, but I think those oftentimes are the way different folks come at it.
I also think there's this great turn right now where women are wanting to stay home and raise their kids and do homeschooling and do some things that, 100 years ago, women were ready to go to work and ready to get out in the business world and ready to do that. And now we're having this come back home kind of message coming in. But women still have that, I want to contribute. And real estate investing is a great way to bring in an extra $2,000 or $3,000 a month and still feel like they're contributing. They're not a drain on their husband and they're not a drain on their kids, that they are contributing. And I see a lot of women, their kids are growing up and they're in high school, they're going to college, and these women have this need to be wanted and to be needed. And one way is to provide money to their kids as they're going out and they're getting more expensive and things. And real estate, you can make a whole lot of money without a whole lot of time invested. You don't have to spend 40 hours at it, and you could still make 10 grand a week if you wanted to.
Yeah, and if you're building that passive income, no matter where you're at in your family life stage, no matter what the roles are in your family or however you set it up, it's a space that you can fill as much as you want to with time and bring it down a little bit as well. If you're wanting to take care of your own properties and you got 12 properties, well, you're putting a lot of time into that. But if you want to back off that time, then bringing in a property manager, it comes with a loss of, a little bit of money, obviously, but you can balance those things. And that's one of the great things about real estate investing, I think, is that it's so flexible that it can really, hit on exactly where you are at as a human being and bring you the life.
You said it perfectly. Most people look at property management as a loss of money. It's not, y'all. Interest is going to cost you some peace of mind. Peace of mind is going to cost you some interest. Okay? And property managers give you peace of mind, so give them some interest.
Yeah. Absolutely. And professional performance too. I think a lot of folks say, hey, I knew I couldn't do it as well as they could do it. So it wasn't about even solely taking it off my plate. It's also about just making sure it's done well, making sure leases are right, making sure the place is maintained, making sure the tenants are treated well. I knew I couldn't do all those things. So even if I did have the time, I didn't necessarily want to use my time that way because I wanted to bring in a professional, right?
For sure. And how many times have we heard from landlords and they say, I've had this house empty for a couple months and I just can't find time to get over there and get it cleaned out.
Yeah.
Get a property manager. They will be there tomorrow and it'll be done and paid for. You'll be collecting rent next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pay people, y'all.
Well, and treat what you're doing as a real estate investor as a business.
A business, not a hobby.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, where it can feel like a hobby, a little bit, especially for folks where a lot of our listeners are at, where they've got 2 or 3 properties, they're trying to figure out how to pull it together. It is kind of a hobby almost. And when you start,
and then there's that bubble between, am I ready to go to 10 units? Should I just stay here and get these paid off? And those are some personal decisions that you have to make. But in my experience, the tide lifts all ships. So get as many as you can while the getting's good. And then figure out if you need to play Tetris a little bit.
Well, and understand how deals work, right? If you analyze deals and not only the data side, but also the heart side, how to buy a house well, then when a good deal's there. And then it's always going to, if it's a good deal, it's a good deal. So I think that's a big part of it.
And don't be afraid to pass up crap deals.
Don't be afraid to pass up crap deals. Tell me more. Like what's an example?
Last summer, I had a great opportunity to invest, I think $30,000 in a deal, but I was basically going to be in like second or third position on this deal, and I ended up walking away from it. And then not a week later, a seller called me. She had a condo worth $120,000 that she was willing to sell for $50,000 if I could close by next Wednesday when she had to go to court.
Yeah.
And because I hadn't spent $30,000 and taken third position in a crap deal, I had $50,000 available that I could be first position, total owner, free and clear in a $120,000 condo for only $50,000.
Hey, it's Jeremy putting my ad hat on right now. As you know, my primary connection with the investment property world, my zone of genius, is investment property insurance. I am the REI insurance guy. Our team at Shine Insurance takes care of investors from all walks and all strategies. If you need insurance for your portfolio, and of course you do, I'm offering a free one-on-one call just for REI Clarity listeners. On that call, we'll chat through your scenario, and I'll share insights and thoughts on how to get your insurance right and whether Shine is a good fit for you. No pressure, no slimy sales, anything. Just me on the phone sharing my insights. To book that call, go to shineinsurance.com/REI Clarity. That's shineinsurance.com/REI Clarity. So it's knowing what a good deal is and what a bad deal is. And I think that takes practice. I think that maybe even making a bad deal. But a lot of times we talk in this podcast a lot about how clarity is the process of getting educated, but ultimately you have to create connections and then you have to implement. And what you're talking about is you love to implement. Sometimes you may not have clarity, but you're going to implement and you'll find out if it was a good decision or not later. But you can't sit in the space of clarity too much, or you don't do the implementation. But knowing deals, understanding deals, whether that's actually doing them or even pretending to do them. I don't know if you ever have people to do this, but I think, analyzing a deal every 2 weeks, whether you make an offer or not, is a big way to make sure that you understand the deals you're making, what are good and what aren't.
I think you need to practice making deals every day. You can sit and watch Netflix and go through Zillow and pretend to make 3 offers on every house that's for sale. Never call the agent, never call the seller, never do anything. You can talk to your dog or your kids, but you'll be practicing hearing yourself say it out loud. And that way when you do say it out loud to somebody, it's not the first time you heard that. I mean, no actor is going to get up on stage before they've rehearsed their lines 100,000 different times in the background. Another thing you can do, that's what I was looking for right here, I got cash flow up there on the top shelf, and that's a great way to practice making offers and practice making decisions with play money.
So you have a bucket full of cash that you get out and think about, all right, how am I going to do this?
No, it's the cash flow game that Robert Kiyosaki developed.
Right. Okay, cool. So you've got the cash flow game.
I got 7 versions of it. I love to play cash flow.
Sweet. All right, let's dig into lease options. And this is something you wanted to focus on. Why did you want to focus on lease options?
Because this is the way that I broke into real estate investing. Okay, I spent all of my money buying random chunks of land and then buying 2 houses that I should not have purchased, but I did because I didn't know what I was doing. But lease options really allowed me to go from little dinky deals and being a hobby investor to learning how I can control deals without ownership. And that's exactly what a lease option is. It's a fancy rental agreement with the option to buy it later at a price we agree upon today. And I love the option piece because I get to keep my woman card and change my mind if I want to. Now, I never have. I've bought them or I'm still in the middle of them. But I do have the right to say, nah, I don't want it anymore. You can have it back.
So essentially, take us through, for someone who doesn't understand lease option, you come into a scenario and you say, hey, I'd love to buy your house, but I'd love to buy your house later.
Well, I listen, okay? And this is really hard, but I need you to shut up when you're talking to the sellers.
Yeah.
Okay? When you're visiting with the sellers, I need you to speak a very little bit and listen a whole lot, okay? And I want you to find out what they got going on, because if I present an offer and I say, all right, well, I'm going to give you this money, but it's not going to be for 10 years, they're going to say, no, I want it now. We all want it now.
Yeah.
But if you will listen to them and they'll start to say, I'm like $500 short every month of, getting my bills paid. And therefore I'm like, 3 or 4 months behind where I should be. And I'm afraid that I'm going to start missing this house payment because it's empty and I haven't rented it. I hated being a landlord. Oh, help me. I don't have time or patience to do that again. When the seller starts saying stuff like that, I go, so you only need like $500 a month? If I could give you $600, you get caught up on old credit card bills? And you haven't been having any income coming in from this property, but you're struggling to make the payment on it. So you're having to work 10 hours extra just to make the payment, 10 hours a week extra just to make the payment on this empty house. So you're losing 10 hours a week with your family. What if I could give you those 10 hours back? And so it's not about that I'm going to buy this in the future. It's about I'm going to relieve this pressure that you're under right now.
I love that. So listen to the seller and what the pressure is that they need from that situation, and then figure out how to relieve it and build that into how you set up this option so that you're putting in what is going to create equity for you over the course of time, but also you're helping them solve that problem.
Absolutely. Most of my sellers, they don't know anything about real estate and they don't care anything about real estate because they're drowning in life. And that's where the, lady thing comes back in. I can ask a whole lot of questions and figure out what you really got going on that has nothing to do with the house. I'm going to solve all those life problems by taking over your payment. And that's it.
What are the most common scenarios you see people in where you can connect with them on the lease option?
So I call these people bridge people because they bought a house and they lived there, then they got married, then they had a kid, then they got another dog, and then suddenly the house was too small.
Yeah.
And so they bought a new house that was a little bit bigger. And instead of selling this one, they just kept it and they rented it for a while, but they're living in this one. But then what happens? They have another kid, they get another dog, their in-laws have to move in with them, they want to buy a lake house, and all these things start to happen. They're climbing the corporate ladder, they're the baseball coach, they're the Girl Scout leader, they're doing life, right? And then this tenant that they've basically forgotten about leaves. And that's going to be the last straw. They can't handle it. They can't do anything else. They're all maxed out on, their time commitments. And so they just start digging into their savings to pay this house note because they just can't even fathom meeting even an agent over there to deal with it. And then it goes on for 6 or 7 months. It starts to smell kind of funky. There's things that start breaking down after a couple months. And so then they get embarrassed and then people start talking about it. And then they get a letter that says, hey, I want to buy your house. And they go, oh, thank you, Lord, thank you. Yes, you can have it. What are you offering? Will you not tell anybody? Just figure out what to do with it.
How did you find that person who was in that exact scenario?
I started sending out yellow letters to absentee owners because I call them bridge people because they're bridging the gaps in life, but they're not letting go of the old piece. Sometimes these people are remarried and they have a whole different scenario, but they're still holding on to their ex-life's property and they're renting it until they get a new love of their life come in. And then this one's got to go, but they're not quite sure that this new one's going to stay. So they love a lease option because, yes, I have the right to say I can change my mind. And they like to think that they're going to go back to that. They never do.
Yeah.
So these people are out there. And if you'll just start telling people on Facebook and at PTA meetings and at the water cooler, at the office, at church, if you start telling people who exactly you help, everybody knows 2 or 3 people exactly like that.
You were the first person who ever said, wear a t-shirt that says I buy houses. And I always remembered that, and the basic premise that part of what you're doing is just getting the word out of who you are, what you're up to, and listening. And suddenly stories come out of different people who have the needs that are exactly the needs you can solve.
And there's thousands of people that woke up today stress out about a real estate problem.
Mm-hmm.
And when you let people know that you're a safe place, they can confess their real estate sins to you, then they all start just puking them out on you. You're like, well, I didn't really want to know about that. I just wanted to buy the house. Like, chill, dude. But when you learn exactly who you're talking to. People are just characters. Every movie is basically the same, and all the sellers are pretty much the same characters. They got a little bit of variety, but they're all the same. And so when you realize that you only deal with two people, one or two people, then you don't say, I buy any kind of house, any condition, any price, anywhere. No, be specific that you help people that are tired of dealing with an old house they don't want anymore in Strawberry Plains, Tennessee. Now, nobody even knows where Strawberry Plains, Tennessee is except locals.
Yep.
And then they know 8 people that have properties there. And, I should connect you with my cousin Susie because she's got a house she was complaining about the other day she didn't want anymore. And we're in. When you're generic, when you're general, you get nothing. When you're super duper specific, one, you can say, you don't qualify. I was specific on who I wanted. I didn't say I wanted somebody behind on payments. I'm not dealing with the bad F word. Foreclosures do not come into my life.
Yeah. Well, okay? and being that kind of specific in almost any business, I think any business that's true. In our business, in insurance, it's the same thing. Like find something you love, something that you're good at, something that you understand, and something that you can connect with people on, and then just dig into that. And it's amazing when you start saying no. And I'm sure you've experienced this, Whitney. When you start saying no, people inherently just want to work with you more. It's almost like you get more people who want yeses. It's the weirdest thing. And I'd never experienced it really before I started saying no. And suddenly it just opens up these worlds. And I think that's what you're saying too. When you're so general, you're never saying no. And I don't know what the science or magic or whatever is behind the word no, but when you start saying it more, you get a lot more yeses for whatever reason.
It's totally true. And it's amazing when you see it actually happen because everybody says, no, I'll do anything. Well, you'd end up doing nothing. Pick one thing, pick one person, and do that. I promise there's 5 people within a mile of you that you can help if you'll just pick one person. I have friends that only help people that are getting divorced, only help people that are going to nursing homes. They only help people that, have split foyer houses because they're fixing flippers and they got a mathematical strategy. They know exactly to the penny what it's going to take to make this house pop again. Like, pick one thing.
That's very specific niche.
And that's okay though.
Yeah.
Because when something comes to me like that, I know exactly who to put it to, who to give it to. And people want to put you in a box. So let them put you into a box, but be specific about which one you want to be in, right? And I tell the ladies I work with, it's just like dating. You're not just going to date any old guy. You have standards, and it's okay to have standards in real estate investing. It's okay to say, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to break my nails. It's okay to say, I'm not going to that zip code because those people are hoity-toity and I don't want to deal with it. It's okay to say those things.
I just thought of while you were saying that is that you also give other real estate investors and other people in your industry permission to send you business in a way that they wouldn't if you were a generalist. If they're concerned that you might, be stepping on their toes, they're not going to send you things. But if they know, well, Whitney works in this space and that's not the space I work in. So every time I hear something in that space, I'm going to send it to Whitney. There's something wonderful about that too, in the way that it helps you to relate with other real estate investors.
Absolutely. And I learned that from the Pumpkin Plan from Mike Mikowicz. I don't know if I say it right, but he also wrote Profit First and The Tulip Paper Entrepreneur, and his whole lineup of books is like, I love it all. I love it all. He speaks my language and he's fantastic. But the Pumpkin Plan really helps you pick one thing and then grow the biggest pumpkin in the patch.
I love that. Okay, let's go to your 3 steps to clarity. For that investor who has 2, 3, 5 properties, they don't necessarily have the strategy that they're looking for, but they're trying to get there. Whitney, what 3 steps do you think that they could take to get there?
Okay, I would be really honest with yourself, because if you're trying to figure out what you want, what the next steps are, let's be super clear, like I said earlier, about what do you want. And let's be honest with ourselves, because some of you don't really want to make $100,000 and go to an office every single day. Some of you actually want to be able to stay home with your kids. Some of you actually want to get off work every day at 4 so that you can go to t-ball practice and be the best coach that ever lived. And if that's what you want, then that's fine. I think if you're going to have it down into 3 steps, for you to really find out what you want, you need to take a long hot shower or a long hot bath, and don't take any electronics with you. You need to go for a very long walk. I mean, until you feel like your legs are about to fall off, because it's right there at the end where the clarity happens, where the breakthrough happens. Because the whole other time, you're just arguing with yourself on, you don't deserve this, you got to do this, you got to do that. What do you really want? Just admit it to yourself. And then it's so freeing. It's just like when you say no to somebody. When you admit what you want, you have all the power to go get it. And then you're super clear on what it's going to take to get there. And I think, take a long hot shower, long hot bath, take a long walk, get it all out of your system, and then say, okay, this is what I want. And it might be that you want to leave your family business. It might be that you want to leave your law degree that your daddy paid a whole lot of money for you to have. That's okay as long as you are living your best life and really focus on what do you want.
I love that so much. And I think that it's so hard to do because the weight and pressure of what the world expects of us, from so many angles and so many different spaces, puts us in the scenario where we don't spend a lot of time thinking about what we want. So figuring out what you truly want, then you have an endpoint. Then you have all right, now I know where I'm going. I used to be a collage artist, which is a little known fact about me, but I always had the picture, the completed image, and I've heard of other artists who feel this way too, had a completed image in my head, and I was like, yes, that is what I want. And then I would spend months and months creating the thing that ultimately I already knew what it was going to look like in the end. But having that goal was step one, and then all the work that led up to that end point made sense once the end thing was there.
Having that clarity is what's going to help you get there, and that's what the whole show is about, the clarity that you need. And please hear me when I say this. I want you to know what you want, but you're going to get hammered with distractions and other random opportunities and things that are going to take you totally off course. And if you follow those, you're never going to get to what you actually imagined in your head. It's never going to happen. And it could take months or years. But if you realize right now that you are totally off track, it's okay to say, wait a second, I'm going the wrong direction. My mama told me that you can't drive them all. You can't drive all those trucks out there. But you can only drive one at a time, and it can only go one direction at a time. So if you realize you're off, put it in park for a second, maybe turn it around, and then go the way that you're supposed to be going. And for some of you, that's going to be super duper scary. And it may not be scary for you. It may be exciting for you. But for your people, it's going to be scary. Your husband's going to be terrified that you up and decided you want to be the church secretary now. Your mom is going to be terrified that you're going to get into wholesaling. That sounds illegal. Okay, these are things that I've heard in my life.
Yeah.
And it's scary for them because they don't have your vision. They don't have that end picture in mind, and they don't have your goals. They don't have your dreams. They don't have your experiences. You just got to get them to trust you that it's going to be okay, or it's not. Some of it might hurt a little bit, but you're going to get to where you really want to be.
Yeah, but it's your vision. It's the place you want to be as a human. You only get one shot at this, And
it's short.
Absolutely. So if that's what you want to do, then go find it. I love that.
And, speaking of it being short, make a mess out of it. Ain't nobody getting to heaven clean. Just go out there, try all the things. What does it matter? Something's going to stick and you're going to be fine. I mean, don't do anything illegal or,
Right. I get what you're saying.
Crazy, but go do some things. Run your credit card up. Live a little. Invest. Do some wholesales. Do a fix and flip. Buy some duplexes even though nobody in your family's ever owned property. Do it to it, baby.
I love it. So I think your 3 steps were take a bath, take a walk, and figure out what you want. Is that right?
Sounds like a lot of relaxing. Maybe that's what I need to do.
Awesome, Whitney. Well, my last question for you, if the person you were when you bought that first $1,200 property, no, let me switch that around. If the person you are now was to give one piece of advice to the person who bought that first $1,200 property, what would it be?
I think I'd laugh at her and say, you should buy more. I mean, we sold like $100, $1,200 lots there. Why did I only buy one? Buy that whole pack.
Absolutely. All right, Whitney, if folks want to find you, maybe a woman listening to this show is like, I would love to work with Whitney. I would love for her to teach me how to invest like she has and how she's taught so many other women to do. How can they find you?
You can go to shebuysit.com/group, and that'll take you over to our Facebook group. Anywhere you can look for She Buys It. I'm here to help you be a Proverbs 31 woman. Verse 16 says she goes to inspect a field and she buys it.
I love it. Whitney, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your busy day to talk with us on REI Clarity.
Thank you.
Special thanks to Whitney Nicely for taking the time to share her insights. I'm feeling inspired, and I hope you are as well. Who do you know who needs to hear this podcast? Who's that friend dreaming of taking the leap from real estate side hustle to full-time financial freedom? Who were you just talking to about investing in real estate? Grab your phone and send them this episode. Let's help everyone level up. We read every single review, so give us a 5-star review and tell us what you liked and what you want to learn next. And finally, please join us in the REI Clarity Facebook group. It is the place to get clarity, make connections, and implement the systems and strategies we talk about here. Just search REI Clarity on Facebook and look for the gold logo. Until then, here's to clarity that leads to financial freedom faster.